like someone asked me like straight up if I like struggle with depression, and I was like, I think I do. And they ended up all just like getting around me and praying for me, and it was like literally just like lifted off of me. Like I felt like from this like super just like, I don't know, that like deep, like you feel that feeling like deep in your chest of just like heaviness, and then like in that moment it was just like lifted off. And my name is Bekah, Rebecca Schwedok. Is it weird?
Well, I think this is really
Rebecca Schwedok.
So, Bekah, as I always start, do you believe that Jesus is alive and active?
I do. I've just seen him like work in my life and like bring me out of things that I like couldn't and have gotten out of myself, and I feel like I've seen him work in so many of my friends' life, and it's things that I just can't deny as like the truth. And I've also just chosen to believe that everything in the Bible is true.
Do you want to start with maybe telling us a little bit about yourself, where you were born, who your parents are?
Yeah, so I was born in Texas. I was born in Texarkana, and then moved to Waco when I was 5, and lived there ever since. And then I came out to Arizona for college in 2016. My parents, they're Nick and Jade, they live out in Waco still. They love Jesus. They both found and followed Jesus in college, and just committed to raising us just as Christian and to love Jesus. And I feel like they've done a great job, even though they were figuring it out for the first time themselves.
What was it like being raised by two parents that believed in God?
I am very blessed by it, especially as I'm becoming an adult. I think as I've grown in my own faith and like become just a follower of Jesus on my own, I feel like I can just look back and use so much of what I've learned. Like I remember my mom like teaching me how to listen for God's voice, and she would tell me to write it down every day, and every day she'd ask me like, hey, what did God speak to you today? And that's something that I've just been able to refer back to, like even when I was in college and started to maybe started to question my faith. There were ways that I was able to look back on that were just undoubtedly a God in my life. And I feel like that was because I know my mom prays for me every single day, and my parents love Jesus. Both of them came from divorced homes, and they both committed to like staying married. They knew there was like no option for divorce. And so in doing that, I feel like, yeah, they have just, I don't know, just been able to like change kind of the pattern of things, which has been really cool to see. And I'm so grateful for, because I see like a loving mom and a loving dad who love each other and have like fought through like hard times, like even when there were times they didn't like, absolutely like each other in their marriage, they still fought through that. And so I'm just so thankful, because yeah, I don't know, it kind of, anytime that I've questioned things, it's kind of just shut down, because I've seen like through, like ever since I was a kid, I've just seen God like working in my life. So.
Was there ever a time that God showed up in your life when you didn't think that he would?
So through high school, like looking back, it's so weird to talk about sometimes, because I was never like formally like diagnosed or anything, but looking back, like, I believe I struggled with depression, and that would play out by just, like, I was going all the time and just, like, in all these activities, but I just, like, there were points I just, like, just was not happy with just being, I don't know, just living at points, you know. And I would just go home and just, like, it just wasn't a good situation. I just didn't feel, like, happy in life, and was in a pretty, like, dark place. And then that's when I came out to Arizona. I went through that whole, like, freshman year stuff I told you about. And then I remember I would always look up, like, depression quiz, like, do I have depression? And be like, hi. And I was like, oh, great. Like, I don't know. And it just, I guess, like, I knew he could show up. I don't know that I, like, had really asked him to until my sophomore year. I moved into a house with a handful of other believers, and one night we were just all sitting around talking, and it somehow came up, like, someone asked me, like, straight up if I, like, struggle with depression, and I was like, I think I do. And they ended up all just, like, getting around me and praying for me, and it was, like, literally just, like, lifted off of me. Like, I felt like from this, like, super just, like, I don't know, that, like, deep, like, you feel that feeling, like, deep in your chest of just, like, heaviness, and then, like, in that moment, it was just, like, lifted off. And I don't know, and, like, ever since then, it's just, anytime I start to feel that again, or, like, would feel that, I just, like, worship, and it's, like, gone. And so, but yeah, so I think that was, I've always known he can show up, but I just didn't really think for him to. I just thought that was something I had to deal with until then. So I know I don't have to deal with it.
Do you feel like, who do you feel like God has made you to be?
I feel like it can be like a mixture of things. I feel like some things he's spoken over me are just joy and peace, like, specifically recently. And I feel like right now I don't know, like, in this world, like, what exactly, like, I think when I think of purpose, like, I used to think, like, oh, what am I going to do with my life? Like, what's my job going to be? Or, like, what's my, like, project or accomplishment or whatever. But I think it's, like, it just doesn't look exactly like that. It's kind of more just about who you are. And I feel like he has made me to be someone who just has compassion for others, and can be, like, hopefully a peaceful place for others, just because of, like, the peace he's given me, and also something hopefully that, like, brings joy to other people and, like, encourages other people.
Well, it's like, what would you say is, like, an important part of your faith, like, that someone listening to this would want to know, or that should know about you?
Something that he really, like, drilled in me a couple of years ago. I was in a kind of just difficult life situation, and he really used that time to teach me to trust him and to teach me that he is good. And I think since then, like, so rooted in me is the fact that he is good, and that's that. But that doesn't always look how we think it should, or that we can understand. Like, even when hard things are happening, like he is good. And I feel like so thankful that he drilled that in me, because it is like never a question in my mind. If like a couple years ago or I guess it's also a couple years ago, but when I got injured, I got a serious injury and it was hard, but there was never like a doubt in my mind that like, okay, well, God's going to use this. This is going to be like a positive thing. Like, of course I was like, it was difficult and there were just difficult challenges and like loss and grieving, but there was just never a question that, okay, he is good. Like, this has happened. Like, I know he's all powerful and like, he's like allowed this to happen. So I believe that he's going to redeem it for good, and that he, not to say he like caused it, but I think he can like allow us to go through suffering and hard times, and he is good in doing that. And like, we can trust that it's never a mistake, and he never forgets. I'm just so thankful that he is always like with us, and he always knows what's going on. And yeah, no matter what happens, like, it's so simple, but it's so just in depth as well. I don't know. So I think that's a huge part of my faith. Is I just feel like I drew this picture one time of me just like standing there, and there's like a hurricane, but I was just like so rooted in the fact that he is good, and I think that's just so important. And yeah. So
If there's a good God, how can he let bad things happen or hard things?
yeah, it's a great question. I'm not sure I fully have the answer, and I think if someone is going through a difficult time, telling them, hey, God is good, that's not the most empathetic thing to do. But so that's a hard question to answer. For me right now, I think it's something I wish I knew the answer to. But as much as I like want everyone to know this deeply, like, I also have to trust that he'll like bring people through their own process. But I also think the power of testimony is huge. Of, oh wow, this person went through this and God redeemed it for good, and this is what happened from it. Like, sharing that testimony is huge. But I don't know. I feel like it might be something also you have to like also experience and let God teach you. Because, I mean, I knew God was good, and I heard it. I was like, okay. But it's until you kind of experience something and you see his goodness in it, I think, that it really sinks in.
Mm-hmm. If you were to share with someone who is wanting to make this faith their own, but maybe hasn't yet, what would you share with them?
Honestly, there's just a responsibility to seek him outside of just going through the motions. Again, I feel like God kind of like brings us all through his own timing with us. But I think if someone's really, they feel like the faith is not their own, I mean, I'd say even just feeling that is a huge step in starting to make your faith your own. I'm sure it doesn't look the same for everybody, but I think when you first come to know Jesus, you have to a big part that I've seen of people learning is through other people and church, and kind of like you see people doing certain things, so you maybe do those things because that's kind of all you've known of a Christian and how to live this lifestyle. So maybe there's a point that that's just not enough, and you kind of like continue to have like more revelations of God on your own. And so I'd say honestly just take the responsibility on yourself to read the word and to spend time with him and pray, and not just let like going through the motions be enough. Like, don't rely on somebody else for your faith.
Is there anything else that you feel like you need to share or want to share that God's put on your heart before we wrap up?
I don't think so. Thanks so much for listening to my story. Oh, did I make a face in the camera? I thought I did that off camera, but I could have made it on camera.